Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we explore the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and the road ahead for their companies. I'm your host, Natalie Borowska, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced, the lessons learned, and the strategies fueling future growth. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Jennifer Donohue, who's the founder of behind Mount Norris Counseling and Wellness, where she provides psychotherapy and well-being support tailored to individual needs. Her work focuses on a therapeutic approach to mental health and emotional wellness rooted in clinical expertise and compassionate care. As a clinician entrepreneur leading her own practice, she's built a community-oriented counseling space centered on meaningful client growth and resilience. I'm thrilled to have you on the podcast today, Jennifer.
Thank you, Natalie, for having me.
Awesome. So what I like to do to begin with is I like to take a journey back in time. So take me back to before you started your company. What were you doing at the time and what motivated you to start?
So, I don't know how way back you want to go, but I did not plan to be a psychotherapist in private practice. I wanted to be an architect my whole life. And I ended up going to like a technology school where they taught architecture and blueprinting. I did get a small scholarship for post-high school to go continue my education, and that did not pan out for one reason or another. Although still having the dream, I said, I'd love to be an engineer, own my own construction company. And so I started to think business. And so when I started college, I took my first few business classes. Truth be told, I hated it. Absolutely bored out of my mind. Okay. And so I was surrounded by obviously other college students, and I was more fascinated by what they were doing. And I had a few friends that were in the field of psychology. So we would often get together and talk about like, oh, what was your class like? I had nothing to say, nothing to say, but I was fascinated by what they were discussing around psychology and sociology and all of these things. And then one day someone was like, that you can change your major. You don't have to be a business major. Like, talk about being naive. I'm also the first person to break a cycle and go to college in my family. So I really did not have that kind of guidance that would be like, somebody should have said sooner, hey, guess what? You didn't have to waste a year in business. You could have been a psych major, long before that. Anyway, turned out I switched my classes and I never looked back. And I ended up getting my master's degree, did all my postgraduate hours. And 2006, 2007, I opened up Mount Norris Counseling and Wellness. And I've been doing it ever since. And it's been great. And I have not one regret, not one. Right.
Yeah, it's always the best. Like, it's so important to do like what you're passionate about. So it's perfect that you made that pivot. It's kind of funny, I will say, it's kind of ironic that you went to business school and now you have your own business with the other major that you took in, which is
and one little caveat, and one little caveat is that they don't teach you business in psychology. So obviously a lot of people are either going to work for a mental health agency, or you're going to be in a school, or you're going to have private practice. It's so having those business classes was still beneficial, because little did I know I was going to have my own business, like you said. And it's good because they did not teach me that when I was in my psychology, when I was getting my master's. They don't teach you the business aspects of it, which I think they should. Will change the whole college model. They should. So I had to learn as I went. I learned from other colleagues, people that were going through it. How to get your license, do your hours, how to become a provider for insurance companies, how to set up an LLC and get referrals. I learned as I went.
It sounds like everything kind of fell in place. I would love to like dive into your business today to give like the listeners some context. Who would you say is your ideal customer? And then maybe dive into some of the different offers and services that you provide.
Sure. So I wouldn't say that it's any one population. I find myself being able to meet with children, maybe 10 and older. Teenagers used to be my primary population. I did a lot of work contracting with public schools. So that was for many, many years, like 17 years, I contracted with local public schools to work with teenagers. And then COVID happened, and I ended up kind of working from home and getting referrals not from the school, but from things like LinkedIn and Substack and Psychology Today. And it started to kind of move into working with families, couples, young adults, post college grads, and families. So it's kind of an array. Like my youngest client is 8, my oldest client is 60. So it's an array, Yeah.
See,
Um,
so you work with a wide audience of people, and then like, what is it specifically that you like provide?
So I am a cognitive behavioral therapist and a reality-based therapist. So I work primarily with people who suffer with symptoms of anxiety, ADHD. So that treatment modality, cognitive behavioral and reality-based, is a good treatment modality for that specific diagnosis. So when I put my theoretical orientation out there, like when people say, "Oh, what kind of therapist are you?"
Mm.
It's usually attached to your theoretical orientation, which is what are you comfortable with in your own natural way of being. Some people do psychoanalytics, some people do Jungian stuff. I do cognitive behavioral work. I just find that to be something that I gravitate towards and that I'm skilled at. So naturally, I'm attracting patients that have symptoms that align with that particular modality. So that's how they come to me, and that's how I advertise it. So I don't assume to be all knowing, and no, I don't. I don't implement every single treatment modality because it's not my wheelhouse, and I can't possibly study them. There's probably over 200 of them. And there's probably I don't know how many diagnosis codes are in the DSM, but I most certainly do not treat all of them. It's such a vast. It's very vast. It's very big psychology. So I just find that this works. It's realistic. It's pretty black and white. Basically, if you say you're going to do something, you're doing it. Basically, your physical self has to match what's coming out of your mouth, and if it doesn't, it's my job to help hold you accountable and to get you to a place of using whatever skills that you have. But one, accountability is huge. Getting to that place of saying, "Oh, you know what? I can do this," and it's tangible, it's physical. I will give them some exercises and some tools that they can take away from every session so they're not walking away going, "Wait, what was that? What was it?" So they'll have breathing exercises. They might have worksheets. I always give homework assignments. And then for the reality based part of it is using your senses. You're here in reality. Like you can hear my voice. So when somebody wants to talk about their past, that's fine. It serves a purpose, but we won't stay there too long because it's not productive and it's not going to help you with today and moving on into tomorrow.
Mm.
So that's my orientation. And so I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine. But like I said, there's many different types of therapies that can be used. Lots of different therapists have different theoretical orientations that align with a certain diagnosis where their help is good to treat that.
Mm.
I just know what mine is, and it works, and I enjoy it.
I'm so happy that like we live in a day and age where like therapy is so much more like accessible. There's so much more knowledge. And
Mm-hmm.
as you say, like there's so many different types of therapy. So it's all about like what works for you and just finding just like what fits. I'm
Yeah.
curious, so with like your specific modality, like how do you, let's provide the listeners with like some marketing perspective. When
Mm-hmm.
it comes to like client acquisition, what are you currently doing for lead generation? I know you mentioned some LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just let us
Yep.
know.
So right now, today is like I'm learning and I'm taking advantage of social media because that's the way that the world has been going for quite a few years and now. But like I said earlier, my there was a chunk of time, 17 years, where I was in a public school, so referrals were just coming every day from teachers, from guidance counselors. So that it was easy. It was my bread and butter. I'd go to school and just they were there. But like I said, when COVID happened, and now you have to go and hustle and get your own clients, that's a whole different beast.
Mm,
Um, and so I'm listed on psychologytoday.com, and that's been very beneficial. And I would say I get probably 1 or 2 referrals a day. Do they all pan out? Not necessarily, because there's certain things that work or don't work. After there's a certain conversation, it could be maybe I'm not a provider of their specific insurance company. Maybe I'm not licensed in their specific state, which I'll get into that as well. But I do have some clients from Substack, believe it or not, because I'm constantly doing research and I'm putting out articles, and you get followers, and then you follow people, and then they're allowed to send you direct messages. And I was like, I never thought that I'd get a client from Substack, but I have a client from Substack, you know what I mean? Or people from out of state. I have a few clients in North Carolina and they're like, oh, my doctor recommended you. And I was like, I don't even know who your doctor is in North Carolina. So what happens there is instead of saying no, I learned very quickly, oh, I can see them if I'm licensed in their state. So that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize, that you can expand your practice. If you're licensed in one state, you're not subjected to work with people only in that state. Where it gets a little tricky is because the insurance companies tend to dictate what you're capable of doing. They put limitations on that, rightly so, because they don't want to be paying for a therapist that's outside of the state. They want to help people in their own state, right? And they also want to help the livelihoods of therapists in said state. So those tend to be cash patients. So I do offer a fee for service. So I'm licensed in North Carolina, New York, and Vermont. And if I get a referral, I have several other ones because COVID, I was able to get emergency licenses, but I have not gotten any referrals from those areas like New Jersey, New Hampshire, Connecticut, but I also don't advertise. So that's another thing. It's like, do I have a big caseload? Yes. Do I want more? Sure. So you have to find a balance of what works for you because you still have to keep your sanity to do your work and do it well. So it's a constant balance. Yeah, so LinkedIn, Substack, Psychology Today is a big one. A lot of it is word of mouth.
And have you dived into paid advertising? I know it's a bit sticky with like all of the states. Is that like something that you would potentially be looking deeper into?
You know, it's a different, I think psychology is a different culture. It's not like I'm selling an actual product. I'm selling a service. It's a little bit different. It's not often that you find, other than on social media, where somebody's putting out like maybe making an opinion about a certain piece, or they're talking about ADHD, or they're providing some sort of advice in that realm. But to go and make a commercial or put pamphlets out, it's not the usual and customary thing. It's not popular, at least here in Vermont, that I know about. It's kind of like medical doctors don't necessarily have, commercials, let's say. There's websites and maybe there's YouTube videos, but I have not, placed myself on a path to really give you an answer to that. I'm not quite sure that would benefit me, but I am looking into creating a podcast. I did complete a manuscript that I sent off to the UK to my editor. And it's called the Donohue approach. And it's basically my 20 years of working with patients and taking a deep dive and researching on many, many topics that I've discussed with people. And it's anything from, ADHD to, relationships, and it's very vast. And it's my approach as to how I would respond if you brought this subject to me. And I just decided to put it in a book. So that's one way that you advertise, because that's the way things are going. Write a book, do some social media, put some videos out there. So I'm learning. I mean, I'm going to be 53. I'm kind of learning. I'm a little behind the times a little bit, but I'm learning, getting some support from my son or my niece, because they're way younger than me and they're pretty savvy. So that helps a little bit, So it works that way. And I'm having a lot of fun with it, to be honest. It's really fun.
Yeah, it sounds like you have like a lot of different plans, like a podcast, a book coming out. So we're at the start of 2026. What is kind of your vision over the next 12 months? Maybe talk to us a little bit more about like the Donohue project. What are your goals,
Okay.
targets? What milestones are you expecting to see in the
So,
coming year?
well, I think part of it is I've always wanted to write a book, and I just never, I'd put my fingers down on the keyboard and just be blank and not know what to write about. I started to just write articles on Substack because I love to do research. And it occurred to me that I had put out 100+ articles on an array of self-help type things. And it occurred to me that maybe those articles can be expanded into chapters. So the book kind of naturally came together that way. And as I'm looking at it, I'm realizing that my response to almost everything is my style. Some people call me unconventional. I have a Long Island abrupt accent. If you can't tell, it's kind of in your face. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I can't help it. It is what it is. And I'm very direct. I don't believe in, obviously colluding with a patient. I don't necessarily believe in long-term therapy. I want to help, and I want to help you feel better as quickly as possible. And so there's this mindset of teaching people. The Donohue approach's essence is to teach people how to separate themselves from the diagnosis A lot of people identify by a diagnosis and they'll say things like, I have anxiety, or my anxiety, or my ADHD, like they're carrying it around like it's a limb or it's luggage. And that is not the right approach. It's not productive. It's really important to be objective of that so you can fight it objectively. But if you're engulfed by it, it's very, very difficult to heal, in my opinion. And I want people to be able to use what they already have on board. I don't want to be too clinical. I know that there's a lot of we use the clinical jargon all the time. We pathologize all the time. And diagnosis codes are great, but really, to be honest, they're for billing purposes. I'll be honest. They are. If you were my patient, Natalie, and let's say you were coming in with anxiety, depression, grief, I wouldn't say, hi, grief, how are you today? Hi, depression, how are you today? Natalie, how are you doing today? Whatever's working, whatever you have going on, I want to be able to expand on that and encourage you to use all of that to combat the symptoms that you're walking into the space with. And one of the things I do immediately when a client says, oh, I have this, I stop them in their tracks. I say, no, you don't. You experience symptoms of. So I change the verbiage automatically. I change the perception, and it's very powerful to watch that unfold. So that's what my book is basically about. And it's 65 chapters, so 65 topics, anything from ADHD, anxiety, depression, relationships, divorce, parenting, adolescence, parenting a neurodivergent child. It's anything that has walked in the door that has been the most common thing repeated over 20 years. And I just put it in a book and said, I think I could reach more people with what I'm trying to do. And it's been pretty successful. I'm still here after 20 years. So I guess what I'm doing is working. I don't know, but we'll see. And I'm enjoying it. I think I've also come into my own a little bit, and maybe that's an age thing where I'm like, okay, I can maybe do some creative stuff here. I can do this. And working from home helps a lot. So I have more time to be creative. And so I'm taking advantage of it.
I like that approach. I think that identity is so important. And if you identify with your anxiety, if you identify with it, then it can, in a sense, as you said, become a crutch. I do totally agree with you in that sense. And it's something, that you experience. And what it sounds like to me is that your approach allows you to like empower people so that they don't like paralyze themselves with the things that they're experiencing. So
Correct.
I'm super excited to hear about the book. What do you feel like is going to be your biggest challenges to making everything that you want to happen in 2026?
Myself. So no, it's true. It's myself. Listen, I am all about accountability, self-preservation, all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, the most important thing that you got going for yourself, and the greatest power is your response. It's how do you respond to the world around you. So it starts with me. It starts with my own self. So if I want to get to the deadline and make sure that this book gets published, I have to do everything in my power to learn, to reach out, to ask for help, to do the research and figure out how does that actually come together. If I am wanting more clients, for example, I have to figure out how to, or locate those avenues to get more clients. It's really about putting yourself out there and also aligning yourself with the confidence that you have. I think over time, one of the things that people forget is your entire life is evidence and proof that you're capable of doing so much more. And I get a lot of people that walk in the door and they're so either victimized by their troubles because, like, they identify by it. And so that blocks their growth. It blocks their potential. They can't even be enthusiastic about what the potential that they have. I mean, and everybody is creative. Everybody has something. And so I do that for myself. And so I try to encourage people to do that as well. And I feel like I am a product of that. So, like, for example, I'll just say it, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I had it my entire life. I didn't get diagnosed till later in life, and looked back and realized the struggles that I went through. And so I understand the shame cycle. I understand the staring at a pile of laundry and just staring at it, hoping it disappears on its own. I've done that. You know what I mean? And so I have this dual lens that not only can I help other people, I can educate more people. So, and I think it's not a bad idea to share sometimes with clients and say, oh, you struggle with those symptoms? So do I, to a point. You got to have boundaries, but to a point. And I'm finding that in 2026, everybody's got ADHD. And I'm not saying that to be sarcastic, but part of this is, here's the thing. At 53, what was ADHD back when I was 7?
Yeah.
No one, like, sure, you could diagnose and there was medication. I mean, I know people in their 60s that were diagnosed when they were 5, so it existed, but it wasn't a big thing. And you mentioned something really, really, like, earlier that was really important, that it's so good that today's day and age, we're not missing steps. We're finding these people. People are getting help. In fact, I worked with a woman named Cynthia Hammer, who ironically reached out on LinkedIn like you guys did. And I was grateful to be asked to be a contributing author in her book. It's Letters to My Younger Self. And it's amazing. And it's all about grown women who were diagnosed late in life, telling their story and writing a letter to the younger version of themselves. And I found that to be so powerful. So it's things like that. When I come across that, I'm like, I'm going to use that. That is something really powerful. And I want to expand on that. I promote them all the time. So that's where I'm at. That's why I share personal stories about that, because I think I'm a success story. I think. I mean, I don't know. I had to work. I had a lot of sticky notes, Natalie, like a lot. You know what I mean? Lots of sticky notes, lots of reminders, and I'm okay with that. I can work with people and say, I get it. I get why you feel shame. I get why you can't start a project when the whole world is looking at them like either they're lazy or they can't get something done or they can't hold a job. I want to be that one person that says, yes, you can. I'm proof of it. Yes, you can. And let me help you. And it's not just ADHD. It's a lot, because it's all encompassing. ADHD sometimes coincides with depression and anxiety and many other things. And so it's important to rule that out. Is it anxiety, which also poses a distraction, or is it ADHD that brings about the anxiety because you can't finish something? So I just kind of am finding my own confidence in that, and I'm able to speak the truth about that and push back when I hear about something that is wrong or you're misinforming the public. I feel compelled to say something because it's important, and a lot of people struggle with it. And so I want to get my message out there. So getting back to your question, it's me. I got to do it. I got to figure it out for me, because no one's coming to save us, right? Really. So it's about holding yourself accountable and being disciplined. So I hope to do that for myself, continue to do that for myself.
I think that's like most people's thing, is like they get in their own way. But if you're able to really like see where you may be holding yourself back and being able to work with yourself, that's like the best that you can do.
Yeah.
And if our listeners want to find out more about what you do, where would be the best place to find out?
Good question. I wasn't prepared for the actual links, but you can find me just through LinkedIn by typing my name in is fine. Also, there's lots of hashtags all throughout social media, and it's hashtag the Donohue approach. And I'm on Facebook under Mount Norris Counseling and Wellness, and Substack is the Donohue approach.
Okay, awesome. It's been great having you on the podcast
today. Thank you so much, Natalie. Thanks so much. This is great.
No worries. And if you are a business owner and you're looking to scale your business and you really want to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to hop on a call with our team and discover how we went from 0 to 13 million per year in less than 3 years. Until then, keep climbing.